Welcome to Boombastic Health, where we challenge the business of healthcare and explore bold ideas that drive meaningful change. Each week, we bring you candid conversations with top experts, innovators, and leaders, exploring the latest trends and technologies shaping the future of healthcare. Join us and be part of the conversation in transforming healthcare.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Boombastic Health in the Wild. Here I have with me Jeff Shattuck, who is the CEO of the DOT Corp. Super fascinating company that's bringing diagnostic to homes. Thanks for being here, Jeff.
Yeah, super excited to join you.
So what you're doing, Jeff, to bring more diagnostics more into the home is really exciting for me, and I want to get to that topic. But before we get there, our viewers love the entrepreneurial journey, love to hear the stories. And you were sharing with me yesterday, this was a print business that made the ultimate pivot with your leadership. Would love to just have you walk us through that story real quick.
Yeah, I'd love to. So we started 44 years ago as a printer, a lithographic printer in the industry. Really, we're heavy in maps. So did a lot of maps and corporate branding. And then about 30 years ago, we moved into logistics and started to really help with fulfillment and logistics, getting products into customers' hands. And then about 15 years ago, we saw the opportunity to take these things that we knew that we become experts at, this really high-end, precise printing around maps and corporate literature, and then also the logistics and fulfillment services, and serve the healthcare industry around healthcare supply logistics.
Okay.
And so we took that skill set and really pivoted and focused on this industry. And now we sit at that intersection between logistics and healthcare, making kits, helping patients out. And it's been a great journey.
So there is this core DNA in this precision printing and logistics that grew up in the business, but then applied to what I would suggest is the most critical place for logistics, which is healthcare. We're literally dealing with life or death in some situations, and you've applied these capabilities there. You know, when I looked at this video you guys were showing with all these robots like zooming around the warehouse, normally when you think about getting effectively what is a little box, we call a kit, right?
Right.
That's tailored to make it easy for whoever the patient is or the individual to do a collection and make it so they can get an accurate test result back. But in order to get all that put together, there's a whole lot that happens behind the scenes, which could be very manual, very costly. It seems like you guys have done a ton to like automate that. And we're all talking about AI typically in the context of software, but it looks like you have the opportunity to start applying that to actual hardware and robots that are transforming the way that this back end works so patients do have a more affordable, more accessible approach to diagnostics.
It's absolutely true. The AI and the robotics and all those things around automation, from our process, it's all about driving down how much time and effort it takes to do something. And so where the robots and the AI come into play in our business is the time it takes to process an order. So from the moment the doctor prescribes a kit, or if a patient goes online and says, I need to take a test kit, I need to take a test for an A1C diabetes test or a colon cancer test kit, or they want to know more about what's going on inside their body. From the moment that transaction happens, we're trying to reduce the hours and minutes from the moment that happened to the moment it ends up in the hands of FedEx or the post office to get to the patient. And all those tools that you mentioned, the conveyor belts, the robotics, the AI to analyze the warehouse and where's the most efficient place to pick it. It's all about just reducing the amount of time so that we can take an order at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 6 o'clock Eastern time and still have it in FedEx's hand on its way to the patient. So they see that tracking number and they say, oh, it's on its way. They don't have to worry about it. It's relief. Right.
Right. So if you think about healthcare and fundamentally what makes it work, typically people think about a doctor's office. And if you need a test done, they think about having a blood draw. And then you think about just the time you have to take to make that happen. And not to take away from the importance of having bricks and mortar when it's the right situation. But I think what we're learning in healthcare is that there's so much that can be done remotely. Typically, though, you wouldn't think about that with diagnostics. But what's happening is this ability to streamline collection, make it easy for the consumer. There's like this whole sea change where we could have the benefit of precision diagnostic techniques right in our homes. Could you talk some about an example that people could relate to where it used to require you going to that doctor's visit, but now you actually can do these diagnostics right there in your own home?
Absolutely. And the amazing thing that the time we live in right now, it's changing so fast and it's improving so fast. But really, COVID was a major change for everyone in our industry, but in our nation. And just changing everybody's mindset of just what you were saying. We can do some of these things at home. We don't have to go to the doctor's office for every test we need. And so being able to do a test at home that uses a drop of blood and puts it on a card and then mails it back. There are so many different data points that we can
Yeah,
get on
so it's
that.
dry blood spots
Dry blood.
on a piece of paper or whatever the type of tissue is, and that goes back to the lab. And what kind of tests can you run on that?
So we're getting all sorts of information about diabetes and proteins that are in your blood. Same with small urine samples or stool samples. There's just a ton of tests now that are available for at home. But even almost more exciting is some of the ones that are coming out now where you put a little device on your arm and it draws out just a small amount of liquid blood. But that
It's like a little prick.
yeah, you barely
Yeah,
I just took one this morning. You barely even feel it. So people that are afraid of needles or
right.
just don't like that whole
Interesting.
experience.
You just barely press against your fingertip, and it's just a real quick little, trick. And then that gives you enough to be able to do, put the blood on whatever the paper is that they provide.
Yeah.
You're talking about something even less invasive than that.
Yeah, less invasive and pulls more blood. So some of those the new devices, they have an even smaller blade in it, but and they are over a couple minutes, they'll draw out really 600 microliters. So just less than 1 ml of blood, but being able to get a small container of liquid blood at home in the home settings, and then put that small container in a package to the lab just opens up a huge array of tests that are available. So I think what we're seeing over time is right now there's a lot of tests that can be done at home. In the comfort of your home, what we see is a change. Even more tests are going to be available over the next couple of years.
Yep.
And we see a huge opportunity to continue to move these tests into the hands of patients, give them more information and more power about their own health.
Is this a really fast growing area?
Yeah, we have seen a lot of interest and opportunities, just what you're talking about, both from pharma, where they want the patient to be able to prescribe a much more precise dosage medicine. So you see it with the GLP-1s, you're seeing it with different kinds of medicines that are coming out where they're going to lead with an in-home test kit and then use that information either from genetics information or what's going on in their blood to then prescribe a better, more precise medicine and get a better result. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future, both on very specific conditions where we already know. So we're doing test kits today for like Lyme disease or vitamin D deficiencies, but I think what we're going to see even more of in the future is around these upcoming emerging medicines that will get a more precise result if we have better data for the provider
Right.
in the doctor's hands. And then they can go back and say, hey, you know what? Maybe it's half a dosage, or maybe it's one and a half dosage.
Yeah. I would also think that the accountable care, risk based types of programs from a payer perspective would increasingly be looking for this kind of at home testing, right?
Really where a lot of our testing started was that accountable care at home,
Okay.
get more data, the feedback for the providers on how well of a job are they doing keeping their populations healthy.
Right.
So are they making improvements in their scores around colon cancer and diabetes and obesity? And a lot of that testing can be done at home where they don't have to go to the doctor's office. We can send a kit to their house and they can help give better data about what's going on in their lives.
So there are a lot of big name labs out there that people are familiar with. Are any of those clients of yours or partners of yours? Can you talk to any of that for our audience to understand the scale of what you're doing and who you're doing it for?
Yeah, absolutely. Like LabCorp is a great customer, uh, and they do a great job of supporting the marketplace with getting test kits out to patients. They're a great business model where they have the brick and mortar we're all familiar with. We're all used to going and getting the lab draws, but they realized that it was important to get into the home of the patients. Not everyone was going to make it out to their collection site. And so they made sure that they had a mechanism where a doctor could prescribe a test that they were going to run. But if the doctor knew it needed to be taken at home, they could write that prescription and it would just flow right into our operation, go through the automation and get out to the patient quickly.
Okay.
And we see that with a number of clients that are similar, where we have that automation for the lab direct to the patient. So many people have shown lots of excitement about trying to do more of the in-home testing, get a more precise result, make it easier for the patients.
Right. That's awesome. Well, you're one of the major components of how healthcare is being advanced. A lot of times people would look at a box and think, no, that's not innovation. But in reality, it really is how you can get to the patient at home, something physical. Because last I checked, you can't actually transmit blood or tissue over the internet
Yeah.
using like a serial port. Maybe at some point we'll be able to run a scan and then there'll be a tissue printer on the other side that prints it out. But until then, the DOT Corp is a great partner for these kits, and really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing this.
We'll look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Thanks for being here.